If you've been around the channel long enough, then you'll remember that earlier this year I made this beautiful Absolute Batman. I'm sure you can tell I'm still very proud of him. In that video I mentioned I wanted to make other Absolute heroes, like Superman, Wonder Woman, maybe Flash and Green Lantern. We'll see how this does. But today I'm following up on that and making... Unlike Batman, Superman stands a solid 6'4". At least, that's the guess. If an issue is released and it says that he's any bigger than that, then I guess mine is inaccurate. I hope he's 6'4", because I like the idea of Batman being bigger than him. Here's the cutout for the body. I actually cut this out back in January when I had finished my Absolute Batman video. Then I sat on it for a while waiting to finish the Marvel Rivals characters roster before I started making him. Like a delayed gratification thing. See, I'm self-disciplined. I reward myself for finishing these videos by allowing myself to make more videos. I'm truly a snake eating its own tail. Making the body is a fairly straightforward process. I decided to even include me making the head, which is something that I typically don't do. With the base of the body finished, I can make the head details. There's not a lot going on with it. I draw the eyebrows on with a Sharpie because I wanted to record this part, but it led me to not looking at references when drawing them, which made me mess up what should be rather thin eyebrows. I also used thread to pull his cheeks closer together. I'd later get rid of this detail because I felt like it makes him look much older than he's supposed to be in the comic, being a younger Superman at age 18 or 19. Another detail that is yet to be specified at time of recording. With the hair, I'm not really planning on changing it up that much. I actually quite like the hair that he's got in the comic, and I want to do that. I go for more of the look that he has near the beginning of the run rather than the current stuff. I like the current stuff, and sometimes I wish I did that, but I also just think this looks nice. He even gets to kind of have a little curl. I quite like how it turned out. At least anything's better than the mullet. Here's how the finished body stacks up height-wise to Batman. I'd say I achieved exactly what I was going for. Now let's see if I can match the quality of the detail. Similar to my Mario video, I wanted to draw my ideas on paper before I started sewing. Now, for his costume. I don't want to just completely copy the comics. Not that there's anything wrong with that design, but I copied the comics on Batman and see how that turned out. Only when I went back and really put some care into it did he look good. Now, I see no reason not to give Superman that same love. However, with Batman, he was so deeply inspired by the in-art prototype. Only problem with that is that they haven't made an Absolute Superman, at least not when I'm making this video. So, I'm gonna have to get creative. I need to put some sort of additional detail on him, similar to how it's done on Batman. The thing that's tricky about adding anything to the suit is that there really isn't that much to add. Like, the suit is pretty perfect as is. What could I bring to the table that isn't already present? At least with Batman, he's a human. So even though the comics draw him in a way where he doesn't have that much on him, you can still add a lot of technical detail to the design. Like you can always add armoring, different paneling. It just makes sense. Instead of really adding that much detail, I decided to tweak things that were. Just change up some of the line patterns mostly. Try to customize this in any possible way. The main idea I had was to give him trunks, which is actually what I start with here. I decided to make the trunks blue as opposed to their typical red. While I like the trunks as a design element, this is a Superman who isn't allowed to have fun. And what's the first thing you do when you're making an edgy Superman? You take away his underwear. Then you make him kill, but we're not going to do that right now. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but Superman doesn't really have a no-kill rule. He just prefers not to, because he sees all life as sacred. Which, when you think about it, really makes sense. Like, of course he would see saving squirrels or rescuing a cat from a tree as sacred. He's an alien. We're not his people, so of course there'd be a more skewed view of life for him on Earth. But don't worry, I'm not a moron. I know mainline Superman views Earth as his home and humans as his people. It's just a way of looking at it. Something else I decided to do on the costume was paneling. Mainly on the front of the chest and shoulders. Just anything to make this a little more visually interesting when bringing this off the page. Another idea I had was to also give him some armor. I was thinking mostly around the upper torso and shoulders, but ultimately decided against it because while the suit he has is technically armor, it's meant to be an awesome future tech from an alien planet, so not lame normal armor that I'm able to make. Something I want to mention is that for the suit I'm using this really nice two-way blue stretch material. I actually found this back in January, I think. I was planning on using it for my brand new day Spider-Man, but I figured it would work just as well here. I was also just running out of the blue material I was planning on using. For the glowing orange parts of the costume, I can't exactly do that. At least not how it looks in the thumbnail. So I decided to do it in this sparkly gold material I got a few years ago. I'm actually starting to run out of this material, which is a shame because I use it way more than I thought I would when I purchased it. I actually used it for Absolute Batman. I've actually just used it for almost every Batman I've made. I also used it for my last Superman. If all I'm doing with it is belts, then I probably won't have to worry too much about running out soon. For the logo, I sew the gold crest on first. Then, to actually get an accurate cutout for the S, I trace it in Sharpie. I had to trace it flipped, so I wouldn't have any Sharpie on the front when I sew it on. Luckily, I think it turned out pretty well, and I can attach it. It's not exactly one-to-one with the comics, but I think I'm just bad at making Superman logos. I guess we'll see next year when I make the Man of Tomorrow suit. For the lines on his suit, I use Sharpie to determine where they'll go. Then, using some orange and red paints, I go over the shins and forearms, trying to mimic the glow effect to some result. I probably could have gone over it a second time, but I really just don't mind how it is now. I'm also not skilled enough as a painter to do what I want, nor am I confident enough to attempt the Kirby crackle, so this'll just have to do. Then when that's dried, I paint over the black lines on the suit with orange paint. And I ruined it. He's ruined. It looks horrible. It's not all bad, because I decided to paint over that with some blue paint. I'm not totally in love with it, and you can still see some of the orange under it, but hey, it beats the alternative. On the cape, I know that it doesn't have a big S on the back, but I also can't make it out of dust, so this was never going to be 100% accurate anyway. All that's really left is to sew the cape onto the suit. Luckily, this is simple and easy since he has a collar and it doesn't need to be sewn into the neck hole. With that, Absolute Superman is finished. I will say that with him done and now standing alongside Batman, I can admit that maybe I failed at making Superman good enough to stand alongside him. Unless InArt releases a Superman and it ends up looking similar to this, then I'll be able to forgive myself. Hopefully they can release a Wonder Woman before I end up making her too. I'd like to mention here at the end of the video that there is no official pattern for anything made in the video. Everything you see here was made completely freehanded with the exception of the body, of which is cut out using a basic body template that is modified in the cutting process. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Videos like these take a lot of time and effort to put together, so I really appreciate you watching till the end. Thank you and have a nice day. Yeah,